So formally, very good morning to all of you. And today we are going to continue on the Spring Core. On the Spring Core, specifically today we are going to discuss about the next approach. And the next approach is called annotation-based approach. In the yesterday's class, the discussion was all about the bean life cycle, scope annotation, eager initialization, lazy initialization. Apart from this, we were talking about the auto wiring. While having the discussion about the auto wiring, I told you about the 4 modes of the auto wiring. The default value is no. Apart from the no, by name is available, by type is available, and constructor is available. Only constructor, not by constructor. So listen very, very carefully. Those who have properly understood the yesterday's class, and before coming to class, those who have studied the notes properly, for them, today's class is going to be very much like a cakewalk. Cakewalk means something that is very easy, something that actually you would like to do kind of sense. Those who are not clear with the yesterday's class, not gone through the notes of annotation, for them, it can be slightly mix up, or you may find that actually a lot of content is covered, but practically not. So I'm going to start without wasting time, sharing my screen to you, and the screen is available to you. So you all are requested to please do let me know if the audio and the video signals are okay. That's nice. That's nice. Okay. So far, we have actually done the configuration using the XML. Actually, everybody, XML is good for learning purpose. XML is good for learning purpose. It actually gives you a proper sense how exactly the application is flowing, what is the mean of configuration metadata is, how exactly we can create the bean, how we can inject the bean, what is the mean of auto wiring is. But nowadays, if I'm talking about the practical applications, or if I'm talking about the real-time application, then in the real-time application, actually, XML approach is not used. It is something that you can call a obsolete practice. Nowadays, if I'm talking about the popular approach is using annotation. Instead of directly learning the annotation, if you have gone through the XML, then if you are jumping to the annotation, then you will realize that you are finding the code is very, very easy. Jumping directly to the annotation is something that is not a very recommended practice for the learning experience. In the industry, you are not going to use XML. In the real life, you are going to use annotation only. But to give you clear, solid foundation of the things, we are actually teaching you XML approach first. And today we are going to discuss about the next approach that is actually called the annotation-based approach. Is that point clear? Shall I proceed? Just 2-3 responses. I don't know why people are sleeping in the class. This is hardly 5 minutes. Okay. So while talking about the annotation-based approach, see, if I'm talking about the annotation-based approach, then in the annotation-based approach, I will talk to you about the 2 types of annotation. The first type of annotation is actually referred as the stereotype annotation. And if I'm talking about the second type of annotation, then the second type of annotation is actually referred as the, you can say that @ bean annotation. The second type of annotation is referred as the bean annotation. These are the 2 annotations I'm going to discuss with you. The very first type of annotation that I'm going to discuss with you is going to be the component annotation. The very first type of annotation that we will use is the component annotation. Below the component annotation, there are some annotation available. One of the annotation is called the repository annotation. Apart from the repository annotation, the next annotation is called the service annotation. And one more annotation is available that is called the controller annotation. If I'm talking about the component annotation, then the component annotation is actually referred as the general annotation. But if I'm talking about the remaining 3 annotation, that is repository, service, and the controller, then they are not general annotation. They are actually the specific annotations. They are actually the specific annotations. So @ repository is the specific annotation for your DAO layer. This is the specific annotation for the service layer. And this is the specific annotation for the controller layer. @ bean annotation, I will discuss to you shortly. But very first point, when we were talking about the bean configuration metadata, I'm not talking about the concept of auto wiring. If I'm talking about the day number 2, when we take first example of creating the object using XML, did you remember at that time we have to create a separate configuration file? The separate configuration file is nothing special. It is just actually a XML file. In the XML file, you have to use the bean tag. If I'm talking about the bean tag, then into the bean tag, the first thing you have to mention is the ID. Next thing that you have to mention is the class. If I'm talking about the class, then definitely class is containing nothing but fully qualified class name, and ID is nothing but it is actually unique name of the bean. This tag actually we have written within a tag. The name of the tag is actually called the beans tag. This is what we have done in case of XML approach. Now this time, the good thing is that you are not supposed to write down any XML file. No need to write down any XML file. Second one more point, into the annotation based approach, the thing is that there is no need to write any XML file. One more pointer that I wanted to take into your notice. If you remember, then actually we were talking about the class. The name of the class is actually called the class path XML annotation config class. Into the class path XML annotation config class, we used to write down application.xml or whatever be the name of the file, such that the file is actually available within the resources folder. src/main/resources/application.xml is available. This time, everyone, you are not supposed to use class path XML annotation config. No, you are not supposed to use this. Actually, you have to use another class. The name of the class is actually referred as annotation config application context. The name of the class is called annotation config application context. Let me actually make correction here. Last time we were talking about the class path XML application context, and this time we are going to have a discussion about the annotation config application context. Into the application context, actually I have to pass one parameter. The parameter is going to be configuration.class, or the parameter is going to be configuration class name.class. So now the question arises that, sir, what is the mean of this configuration class name is? So simple logic. Actually, you need to create a class. The class you can create with any name, whatever you like. Class you can create with any name, whatever you like. But in this class, actually, you need to write down one annotation, and the name of the annotation is actually called the configuration annotation. The name of the annotation is called the configuration annotation. So just actually step by step. In the XML approach, what actually we are doing? We are writing the configuration metadata in the XML. So we have to create an XML file. This time, do you need to create an XML file? Answer is no. Answer is no. Second time, last time when you wanted to instantiate the container, then to instantiate the container, you need to create the object of class path XML application context. And into the class path XML application context, you have to write down application.xml or whatever be your configuration metadata file is. But when you are jumping to the annotation based approach, then definitely no need to write down any XML file. But actually the thing is that you need to create a configuration class. You need to create a configuration class. And into the configuration class, what to write down, that I will discuss to you shortly. But one more pointer that I would love to say you is, this time, if you wanted to initialize the container, or this time, if you want to instantiate the container, then definitely to instantiate the container, you have to actually create the object of annotation config application context class. And into the annotation config application context class, you have to pass the name of your configuration class. So if I'm talking about the name of the configuration class, the name of the configuration class is app config. The name of the configuration class is app config, and we are writing here, this is going to be app config.class. Is that point okay? This is just simple a migration guide. So shall I take a simple example? Yes, it is. So initially one very basic example I am going to take for you. And into this initial basic example, first of all, I am available into the STS, and into the STS, let me actually just copy any example. So for example, let's say that I am just actually copying pasting the first example. So first example copied, pasted. And this time actually I'm giving a new name. So the new name that I'm giving is, let's say this is going to be example number 12. And into the example number 12, I am going to take example of, this is called stereotype annotation. Stereotype annotation, stereotype annotation. Then if I'm talking about the stereotype annotation, in case of the stereotype annotation, first of all, I wanted to include the Maven dependency. So first of all, I am refreshing the project. After refreshing the project, I'm clicking on OK. Now listen, I'm going to rename the package. And while actually renaming the package, the first name I'm creating is com.masai school. The first name that I'm creating is com.masai school. Into the com.masai school, there is a class available. Name of class is called the app class. And this is what my main class is. Then I'm going to create one more package, control N, one more package I'm going to create. And name of the package I'm writing is com.masai school dot. Name of the package I'm writing is, let's say, config package. Name of the package that I'm writing is config package. Just a minute, creating the package. So config package is created. Similar to the config package, I wanted to create few more packages, like one of the package that I am creating, one of the package that actually I am creating. The name of the package is going to be, let's say, package P1. And thereafter, I am talking about one more package. The name of the package that I'm creating is going to be package name P2. Okay, multiple packages are created. Now into the config package, I wanted to create a class. Into the config package, I wanted to create a class. The name of the class is actually app config class. Into the app config class, nothing special, just actually I am adding one annotation. The name of the annotation is actually called the configuration annotation. The name of the annotation is actually called the configuration annotation. Here actually, what is the mean of this @configuration annotation is? Last time, when we were talking about the XML based configuration, in case of XML based configuration, what bean actually the container need to create? It was written in the application.xml file. Remember? This time, what bean exactly supposed to be created? This has to be written in the configuration file. So can I say, in case of XML approach, whatever actually your application.xml file, this is what your app config is in case of annotation based configuration. Yes or no? Yes, it is. That's good. So you can see, indicate that a class declare one or more bean method and may be processed by the Spring container to generate bean definition and service request for those beans at runtime. I will extend this example. We'll talk to you multiple things. So initially, one configuration class is what actually I have already created. And if I'm talking about our documentation, then in our documentation already mentioned things about the configuration annotation. So you can see that from Spring 4.x onwards, we can define the configuration class instead of a Spring configuration file. To make a Java class as a Spring configuration, we need to annotate that class by using @configuration annotation. And definitely this is a class level annotation. This is a class level annotation. Okay, one part I have done. Thereafter, everyone, I'm talking about the next part. And the next part is that, let's say into the package P1, I wanted to create a class. The name of the class that I'm writing is class A. The name of the class that actually I'm writing is class A. Into the class A, nothing special I am doing, just actually I'm writing a public constructor, and into the public constructor, just putting a message that is system.out.println, and here I'm writing that is inside constructor, inside constructor of class A. I'm writing here inside constructor of class A. Let me run this example for the first time. Okay, class A is available. No stereotype annotation I have used. First of all, class A is available. No annotation I have used on this class. Class app config is available. On the class app config, I have just used @configuration annotation. Nothing special actually I have done. Just actually for the sake of experiment, I am doing one thing. Here, for example, let's say that I am providing the constructor, and into the constructor, I am writing here that is inside constructor of app config. This is the just line what I'm writing. Coming to app.java, which is my main class, this time I need to instantiate container using class path XML application context, option number 1, or using annotation config application context, option number 2. Please write your opinion. Definitely opinion number 2. So I need to use the class. The name of the class is actually going to be annotation config application context class, and into the annotation config application class I need to write down the thing that is called the app config dot class. I wanted to assign the same to a variable. Yes, I can assign. Press Ctrl 2, then hit L. Automatically it will be assigned for you. And this time actually from the hierarchy it was, I hope that clear for all, that annotation config application context class is actually an implementing class of application context. Remember? If you remember the hierarchy that I told you multiple times. Okay, so this time everyone, nothing is special, just actually I am instantiating the container. This time nothing is special, just actually I am instantiating the container. After instantiating the container, just actually I am writing one thing that is called system.out.println, and in the system.out.println I am writing inside main. Just once again, please take a look. First, a class is available. The name of the class is A. It is available in the package P1. Nothing I have done so far. Then there is one more thing available, app config. The app config actually is a class that is annotated with @configuration annotation, and one public default constructor is defined here. App.java is available because this is annotation based approach. That's why we are writing annotation config application context class. And there I'm writing inside main. Let me run this example. Let me run this example and please check the output very properly and then answer. First question. Object of class A, is it created? No. Question number 2. Object of configuration class, is that created? Yes, it is. So can I say whenever I'm going to use annotation based approach, so first of all, actually your Spring container is going to create object of the configuration class. The using that configuration class, then further objects will be created. Is that point okay? Perfect. That's good. And now the question arises that, sir, why exactly object of @A class is not created? So I will say that if you want a Spring container to create object by itself, if you want a Spring container to create object by itself, then here you have to write down one annotation. The name of the annotation is actually called @component annotation. Whenever you are annotating any class with @component annotation, means object of this class will be created by the Spring container. Management of this object will be done by the Spring container. So whenever a class is annotated by @component annotation, means object creation plus managing the life cycle of the object, everything will be done by the Spring container. Is that point clear? Is that point clear? So any class that is actually annotated with @component, component means. If I'm talking about the first thing, then the first thing is going to be that then definitely object of this class will be created by a Spring container. This is point number 1. And definitely it will be a Spring Bean, i.e. its life cycle will also be its life cycle will also be managed by Spring Bean. So what is the meaning of @component annotation is that point clear? What is the meaning of @component annotation? Is that clear? Okay. Now one question that commonly arises, that sir, what will be the name of the bean? So I will say that name of the bean will be same as actually name of the class, but actually the bean name will be in the, you can say that camel case convention. It will be in the camel case convention. What is the meaning of camel case convention? For example, let's say that if I'm talking about name of the class, let's say that the name of the class is app config, then in this condition, name of the object is going to be app config with a in the small letter. Let's say that if I'm talking about name of the class, let's say that name of the class is simple interest. In this condition, if I'm talking about the name of the bean, then the name of the bean is going to be simple interest with s into the small letter. If the name of the class is a, in this condition, your bean name is going to be small a. Is that clear? How exactly default naming is working? Perfect. Then the fourth number point is also there, that if you want to give actually name of your choice, if you wanted to give name of your choice, then actually you have to use value attribute with. You have to use value attribute with @component annotation. So for example, let's say that I'm writing @component into the @component. Let's say that I'm talking about one thing that is called value, and let's say that I'm writing ABC. If I'm writing ABC, so now name of the bean will be ABC. Is that point okay? Is that clear? So first part is done. Shall I execute this code? Shall I execute this code? This time, are you people expecting that object of class A will also be created? Reasonable to expect? Reasonable to expect. Alt Shift X J. Take a look at the output and please do let me know if you are able to find out constructor calling for class A. Nobody? Yes, it is not there, and perfectly okay, it is not there. Because see what happened. Take a look what exactly the situation is, or try to understand the behavior of the Spring container. The Spring container says that initially, actually, what you are doing, you are actually instantiating the container. Okay. While instantiating the container, you are actually providing the name of the configuration class, that is app config. So first of all, your Spring container will create the object of the app config. When it is creating the object of the app config, then definitely constructor of app config is called. This first part clear? Yes, it is. Now when actually object of app config is created, now actually by default your configuration is thinking what object to be created, that configuration class will tell us. Repeating again, the Spring container is actually, you can say that, looking for the configuration class, that hey configuration class, please tell me what object do I need to create. And if you are looking at the code of the app config, is there any instruction I have provided to the container? No. So practically we have created the configuration class, but into the configuration class, we have not written any instruction to create any bean. Yes or no? Yes, it is. So that's why actually, even if you have annotated @component annotation for the class A, still object of class A is not created. Still, object of class A is not created. So overall, can we say that this is our fault actually, not a Spring container's fault? Yes, it is. So actually, I have to tell the configuration class that hello configuration class, please create the object of class A. Please create the object of class B. So how to tell the configuration class that to create the object of what class? Again, there are two approaches available. The first approach is using the stereotype annotation, and the second approach is using @bean annotation. Initially, I am going to discuss with you about the stereotype annotation approach. Now you are thinking that's a stereotype annotation a.java we have already used, but still it is not creating. The answer is yes, because actually you have to use one more annotation this time, and the name of the annotation is actually called the component scan annotation. One more annotation that you have to use, the name of the annotation is actually called component scan annotation. Into the component annotation scan annotation, there is one attribute available that is called base packages. Can you see that the base package is actually taking a comma separated string, or it is taking actually array of string? Can I say base packages is an attribute that is actually taking array of string. The array of string is nothing but it is just simple. You can say that package name that will be scan. Take a look at the description. Base package to scan the annotated component. Base package to scan annotated component. So what exactly I am doing, just try to understand. I'm using the base packages equal to curly braces. Then I'm writing name of the package, and the name of the package is going to be, let's say I am writing the name of the package is com.masaischool.p1. The name of the package that I'm writing is com.masaischool.p1. So this time what will happen when this configuration class will be loaded? First object of the configuration class will be created. Now automatically using @component scan, you are actually telling to the Spring container that Mr. Spring container, please go to package com.masaischool.p1, and whenever and there, if you are finding any class that is annotated with the stereotype annotation, you have to create object of that class. Repeating again, repeating again. This time what will happen? First of all, an object of appconfig class is created. Yes, created. Now the Spring container is finding that there is one annotation available. The name of the annotation is called component scan. In the component scan, there is one attribute base packages and the name is com.masaischool.p1. So this time, just after creating the object of appconfig class, your Spring container will automatically start scanning this package. And in this package, whenever it is finding any class that is annotated with stereotype annotation, its object will be automatically created by the Spring container and it will be registered to the container as a Spring bean. Is that point okay? How the flow is working? Yes. So this time, now I'm going to execute. So doing the right click, run as, thereafter I'm talking about Java application. So this time, object of class A is created. Finally, so clear how to migrate your application from actually XML approach to the simple, you can say that annotation based approach. And you can see that last time we were writing lot of amount of code, and this time hardly I have written 10 to 15 lines of code and your application is configured. So don't you think that it is better than the XML approach? Yes, it is. Always keep in mind this is better than the XML approach. Now let me do one more job. So for example, let's say everyone that one package is available. The name of the package is called P1. Thereafter, I'm going to create next class, and the name of the class that actually I am writing is going to be class B. The name of the class that actually I am writing is going to be class B. If I'm talking about the class B, then into the class B, again, I'm going to create a constructor. After creating the constructor, then I am writing this is going to be that is inside constructor of class B. After writing inside constructor of class B, again, I am talking about the annotation that is called @component annotation. We have written through @component annotation. Now I have written @component annotation. So this time in the output, can I expect that object of class A as well as object of class B will be created? Answer is 100% no, and the mostly answers are right. Answer is 100% no, because actually you can see that into the app config, what package I am talking about? I am talking about only package P1. When I am talking about only package P1, so only package P1 will be scanned. Package P2 will not be scanned. That's why object of class B is not created. Is that point okay? Working perfect? That's nice. That's nice. That's nice. So everyone, if you want to create the package object of the both classes, so let's say if I'm writing that com.masaischool, so it will scan the package that is com.masaischool, and it will scan all the subpackages of com.masaischool also. Is that clear? So when I have written only com.masaischool means actually it will scan everything. If it is scanning everything, so this time can you see that object of class A is created, object of class B is created? Yes or no? Yes, it is. And after once the configuration files object is created, or once the configuration class object is created, thereafter your packages are scanned in the alphabetic order, and your objects are also created in the alphabetic order. That is what actually the scene is. So very first application is clear. Very first application is clear. Let me create one more class. The name of the class that I'm writing is class C within the package P2. And while writing within the package P2, let's say that I'm not writing the stereotype annotation this time. When I'm not writing stereotype annotation this time, so this time I'm asking you, will the object of class B, class C created? Definitely no. Definitely no, because there is no stereotype annotation. If no stereotype annotation is there, then why to create object? Make sense, everyone? Yes, it is. So I hope that the first example is clear for all, how to use the stereotype annotation and all that. That's good. So overall, the point is that everyone, you have to create the configuration file. Thereafter, you have to use one more thing that is actually called the component scan. Into the component scan, there is one attribute available. The name of the attribute is called base packages attribute. Into the base packages attribute, you have to specify the comma separated list of name of packages to scan. That is what actually you have to write down. Is that point okay? How to work? So this is one complete example that actually we have written for you. So this is first and the foremost basic example. Actually, into the real life, you are going to use that approach only. You are going to use that approach only. So overall, the pointer is that everyone, when I am talking about simple stereotype annotation, then in case of the stereotype annotation, you can say one thing, sir, that stereotype annotation actually guide the Spring container to create the object plus manage the object. Is that point clear? You are actually guiding the Spring container to create the object as well as manage the object. So when I'm talking about the stereotype annotation, so stereotype annotation says that create plus manage. Both the responsibility is of the Spring container. Create plus manage Spring Bean. Both are the objects of both are the both are done by Spring container. Well, both are done by Spring container. Is that okay? I think you will understand what exactly stereotype annotation is doing. That's good. That's good. But on the other hand, everybody, if I'm talking about the bean annotation, into the bean annotation, always keep in mind that bean creation will be actually done by the user, or you can say that the programmer. But if I'm talking about the life cycle management, or if I'm talking about the management of the bean, then definitely the management of the bean will be done by the container. So what is the difference among them? Is that point clear? Is that point clear? Difference is clear. What is the difference between @bean and @component is? Stereotype annotation is. Stereotype annotation says that C plus M, create plus manage. This is for a Spring container. But if I'm talking about @bean annotation, in case of the bean annotation, you can see that if I'm talking about the create plus, create is the responsibility of the programmer, but manage is the responsibility of the Spring bean container. So this is what difference is. So shall I take one example of the simple bean approach? Yes or no? That's good. That's good. So let me actually close some things. And this time, let me copy and paste. This is going to be example number 13. So this time I'm going to take example of bean annotation. And apart from the bean annotation, yesterday we had discussion about the life cycle. The same discussion I'm going to take again for you for your comprehensive knowledge. So this is going to be my example number 13. Into the example number 13, first of all, let me add the Maven dependency. So Maven dependencies are added here. Thereafter, I am talking about the same structure. So while having the same structure, if I'm talking about the class A, so this time I did not provide any stereotype annotation on the class A. This time I did not provide any stereotype annotation on the class A. Because I haven't provided any stereotype annotation on the class A, so this time only package P1 is there. Within the package P1, only a.java is there. Within this a.java, so I'm going to do some experiments. So first thing is that, let's say I'm talking about one variable integer I, default constructor I have created. Then I wanted to generate the getter setter method for this. So this time when I'm creating the getter setter method for this, so this is created. I'm not interested in the get I method. Mainly, my focus will be on the set I method. Thereafter, system.out.println, and let's say that I'm talking about inside set I method of class A. Inside set I method of class A. Thereafter, I'm talking about app config. Into the app config, this time, just actually configuration class I am doing. I am not specifying any @component scan. I'm not specifying any @component scan. So this time actually just one thing that I wanted to tell you. As of now, when app.java is going to be run, so definitely we will get actually a very simple output, and the output is going to be just inside main. Why? Because actually object of app config is created. In the app config there is no constructor available, so no output is there. and this time there is no component scan. So definitely no scanning of your project will be there, and your Spring container will not create any bean. Is that point okay? And this time I wanted to tell the Spring container to create the bean. This time I have to tell the Spring container to create the bean. So this time always keep in mind, let's say that I'm talking about the method. The name of the method is called the get a method. And here I'm writing a small a equal to new capital A. And thereafter I am writing return small a. And here I'm writing that is inside method get a. Is that okay? I have created a method. In this method, nothing special I am doing. Just actually I am creating the object of class A manually, and I am returning the same. I am returning to whom? I am returning to whom? This is what the key question is. But before talking about this question, let me run this example again. Any difference? No. Simple. No difference is there, because this time actually I am instantiating the container. Container is creating the object of app config class, but container don't know what to do with this method. Or simply we can say that right now container is actually ignoring this method. Right now container is ignoring this method. What we wanted to do? We wanted to create bean by ourselves, but we wanted to give this bean to the Spring container. That is what actually my objective is. Yes or no? I wanted to create bean by my own, but I wanted to let the container manage this bean. So in this condition, I have to annotate this method with an annotation. The name of the annotation is going to be bean annotation. Is that point okay? Clear? That's good. That's good. So now this time let us try what is going to be there. So let me execute this code. And when I'm executing this code, so which method is executed first? Which method is executed first? Get a method. So can we say that first of all object of configuration class is created, and thereafter whatever method that are annotated with @bean, all these methods will be called by the Spring container. And because in this method itself I am creating the object of class A, so definitely constructor of class A is called, and thereafter main method is also called. Is that point okay? Perfect, everyone. That's nice. So this is how exactly the thing is working. And then everyone, if I'm talking about the set I method, then the set I method is not called automatically. Why it is not called automatically? Because I am creating the bean. So it is my responsibility to call this method. Yes or no? This time Spring container is not creating the bean. This time I am creating the bean. So because I am creating the bean, so this is my responsibility to call this method. Is that point clear? Everyone clear? Shall I proceed? Yes, it is. And yesterday, if you remember, if I'm talking about the class A, so let's say there is a class A available such that the class A actually implements. Class A actually implements an interface. The name of the interface is called initialize bean interface. Apart from the initialize bean interface, there is one more interface available, and the name of the interface is called disposable bean interface. Both interfaces I am doing. I wanted to provide the definition of the method. So directly I am going to override the method. Okay. So while overriding the method, I am writing here system.out.println. Into the system.out.println, let's say that we are talking about the inside destroy. And inside destroy is actually for the disposable bean. Inside destroy is for the disposable bean. If I'm talking about the inside after properties set, the inside property set is called for the initialize bean. This is one thing that actually I am doing. Now let's say that I'm creating one more method. The name of the method that actually I am writing is, the name of the method is called the begin method. The name of the method is called the begin method. Into the begin method, let's say that I am writing, this is going to be inside begin. And when I'm writing inside begin, so actually I am calling it that this is a init method. Similarly, there is one more method available. The name of the method is called the end method. Inside the end method, we are writing inside end. And here I'm writing, let's say that I'm calling it custom destroy method. Yesterday, did you remember? Init method destroy method attribute of the bean tag. Very few scholars. Only very few scholar, which is not a good symptom. Okay. So once I have created the custom init method, I am talking about the custom destroy method. Into the bean configuration metadata, how to register that I know. but how to register in case of annotation. So actually with the @bean, there is one attribute available. The name of the attribute is called init method. And one more attribute is available. That attribute is called the destroy method. If I'm talking about the init method, then in case of the init method, I have to write down name of the method such that the name of the method is going to be begin. And if I'm talking about the name of the destroy method, so the name of the destroy method that I'm writing is end. Saving this file, saving this file. Coming to app.java, and after coming to app.java, let me run this code. And when I am running this code, please take a look. First of all, getter method is called. Thereafter, constructor is called. After calling of the constructor, can you see that first of all, after property set method is called, and this is the same thing that I told you yesterday. If you are having custom init method and you are having after property set method, then in this condition, your after property set method will be called first, then your custom init method will be called. So the same flow is actually working in case of configuration metadata also. Is that point okay? Yes, it is. That's nice. And right now, actually, the destruction related methods are not called. Why the destruction related methods are not called? Because actually, this is actually, we have to use the configurable application context. This time, we have to use configurable application context. And when we are using the configurable application context, did you remember yesterday I was talking to you about a method that is called close method? Yesterday, I discussed to you about the close method. So you can use the close method also. There is one more method available that is called the register shutdown hook method. The register shutdown hook method say, hey container, whenever you are going to close, please do let me know. I will call some method. Register shutdown hook method say, hey container, whenever in future you are going to close, please do let me know. I will call some method. But on the other hand, if you are writing context.close, so you are explicitly telling the container to shut down. Getting my point? What is the difference? In case of close, you are telling the container to get shut down. In case of register shutdown hook, you are telling the container that, hey container, whenever in future you are going to close, please do let me know. I will execute some shutdown operations. So let me execute this code. When actually I am executing this code, so this time everyone, the same sequence that I told you yesterday, the same sequence that I told you yesterday, yes or no? Perfect. That's nice. So actually, this is what actually your bean configuration is. Using this A, if you wanted to call the set method, you can call the set method also. Why actually I'm calling the set method? Because if you are using stereotype annotation. So in case of the stereotype annotation, first of all, your constructor will be called and then your setter methods will be called. That's why to make the same harmony, I am doing the same job. Now, for the initialization purpose, there is one more way available that is specific to annotation based approach. One more way available, and that way is actually specific to annotation based approach. Why I am calling it specific to annotation based approach? So let me say you a very, very simple thing. The very most or foremost simple thing is here, everyone. There are two annotations available. One of the annotation is actually called the post construct annotation, and one more annotation is available that is called the pre-destroy annotation. I'm going to discuss with you about the two annotation. The one annotation is called the post construct annotation, and one annotation is actually called the pre-destroy annotation. Because I wanted to use these two annotations in my application, so for the sake of this, actually I need to add one dependency, and this dependency is what called as Jakarta Annotation API dependency. Directly you can go to the Maven repository. After going to the Maven repository, you have to take the latest version, and that latest version you have to add into your pom.xml file. So because I wanted to show you annotation based approach, so to show you the annotation based approach, Spring context is already available there. I am adding one more that is called Jakarta annotation. So I am writing here, this is actually for annotation @ post construct, construct, and for the annotation that is called pre-destroy annotation. Okay. So if I'm talking about the app configuration, sorry, a.java. Into the a.java, I'm going to do one job. First of all, let me refresh the project. Otherwise, it will not work. The project is getting refreshed. Into the Maven dependencies, Jakarta Annotation API is available. Jakarta Annotation API is available. So let me create two methods. One of the method that actually I'm writing is, let's say that the name of the method that I'm writing is public void start method. into the public void start method. Then I am writing this is going to be inside start. Thereafter, I am talking about the next method. The next method is going to be the stop method. Into the stop method, thereafter, we are writing here inside stop. The first method, actually, I am annotating with the annotation that is called the post construct. And always, 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 always make sure to add Jakarta annotation API in class path. Will you understand this? Perfect. Similarly, you have to add one more annotation. The name of the annotation I am calling is pre-destroy annotation. So this time, following the same practice, and while following the same practice, I have created one method. The method is annotated with post construct. I have created another method that is created with the pre-destroy. This time, let me execute this application. I am available in app.java. I am executing this application, and when I am executing this application, first of all, get a method is called because this is configuration class method. And then can you see that first of all, constructor is called. Thereafter, setter method is called. After the setter method, among the available 3 initialization methods, can I say first of all method annotated with post construct will be called. Then the method annotated with, then the method after property set it will be called. And then finally your custom init method will be called. Yes or no? That's good. And at the time of destruction, the same sequence is getting repeated as it is. At the time of destruction, the same sequence is actually getting repeated as it is. Means first of all pre-destroy, then it is going to be of the destroy interface, disposable bean interface, and then finally it is going to be custom destroy method. So now clear everyone how exactly the life cycle will be managed? Everyone, is that clear how exactly the life cycle is processing in case of a Spring container? The same thing with the diagram I told you yesterday also, that you have to take the screenshot. First of all, instantiation means constructor calling. Populate properties means calling of the setter method. Then actually forget about the next 3 blocks. Then pre-initialization. Pre-initialization means at the rate post construct. Thereafter we are talking about after property set. After property set, then we are talking about custom init. Then your bean is ready to use. Then into the container, first pre-destroy will be called. Then destroy method of the disposable bean will be called. And then finally custom destroy method will be called. I hope that you people are having a screenshot of the same. Yes or no? Yes, it is. That's good. So this is what actually your bean life cycle is. This is what actually your bean life cycle is. So overall, according to this principle, if I'm talking about the bean life cycle, then definitely this is going to be the bean life cycle in this case. Is that clear? Shall we proceed to the next example? That's nice. So far 2 examples we have taken. In both the examples, we were talking about the annotation based configuration and etc. etc. Now I'm going to have discussion about the next part. Now, I'm going to have discussion about the next part. The next question that commonly arises in the mind of everyone is that, sir, at the rate component annotation is available. Then what is the mean of this at the rate repository, at the rate service, and at the rate controller? So let me tell you a very, very simple thing. If I'm talking about at the rate repository annotation, at the rate repository annotation. At the rate repository annotation, we have to use with the class that actually provide the implementation of the DAO interface. Simple. SB 101, week number 3 and week number 4. You all have used DAO pattern? Yes or no? Yes, it is. In case of the DAO pattern, did you remember that normally we used to create an interface like employee DAO, and thereafter we have to create a class. The name of the class is going to be employee DAO IMPL. Yes or no? So yes. So first actually we used to create an interface. Let's say that the name of the interface is going to be employee DAO. And thereafter I'm going to create the class. The name of the class is going to be employee DAO IMPL class, such that the employee DAO IMPL class actually implements the employee DAO class. Is that okay? So when it comes to using the repository annotation, then the repository annotation is something that actually you have to use here. Is that clear? Repository annotation you have to use here because this is a specific annotation for DAO. Because this is a A specific annotation for DAO. Is that point okay? Yes, it is. Shall we proceed further? Yes, it is. So if I'm talking about proceeding the further, then in case of proceeding further, see what is the specific about the repository annotation is. At the rate component annotation, it actually create and manage the Spring Bean. Both actions will be done by the container. So same story is actually getting repeated for the repository annotation also. So why we cannot use the component annotation? Can we use component annotation? Answer is yes, but this is not recommended because it is doing one more action. What exactly this one more action is? You all have used JDBC API. Into the JDBC API, I think you all of know that it is going to throw one checked exception, and the name of the checked exception is SQL exception. Remember? The JDBC API is used to throw a checked exception, and the checked exception is simple SQL exception. This time actually we are working on the Spring. This time we are working on the Spring. Spring is having a dedicated framework that is called the Spring Data JPA that we will cover in the week number 3. If you are using the Spring Data JPA and you are getting the exception of the JDBC, then don't you think that it sounds weird? We are using an advanced framework, but we are getting the exception from the primitive technology. Is that okay? Isn't it very much like you are buying a new car and such that into the new car, actually you are having a old engine fitted? Repeating again, try to understand. Repeating again, try to understand. Ultimately, any technology, whether it is Hibernate, Spring Data, JPA, anything, ultimately it is going to use the JDBC to interact with the database. Yes or no? You have already gone through the diagram in SB 101. Hibernate is internally using the JDBC. iBetis is internally using JDBC. Toplink, Eclipse Link, everybody is using JDBC. So any technology that is using JDBC as an internal. Now let's say that you are performing some operation, and while performing some operation, there is some exception available. If the exception is available, then definitely the exception has to be propagated to you. Yes, it is. Assume situation. I'm using Spring Data JPA. I'm using Hibernate, and suddenly I come across the exception of the JDBC. Don't you think that it is very much like that? Ultimately, if I'm getting the exception of JDBC, then what is the advantage of using Spring Data JPA? Or what is the advantage of using Hibernate? Because Hibernate is converting the checked exception into unchecked exception. Did you remember? Persist method, close method, every method, persist method, find method was there. Apart from the find method, there was delete method was there. So merge method was there. That is to change the state of the entity. So what actually Hibernate was doing? Hibernate was actually converting your plain JDBC exception into the unchecked exception. That is what actually your Hibernate was doing. This time @repository annotation is also having the same job. @repository annotation says that whatever be the exception thrown by the JDBC, I will convert this exception into the Spring specific exception. Now is that clear? So this actually converts this stereotype annotation converts the JDBC exception to simple. You can say that Spring Data JPA exception. So this time, can you see that it is actually giving you a quoting? It is giving you a more feel that yes, you are actually available at the Spring Data JPA, not in the plain JDBC. The second job is clear. So normally this is very commonly asked interview question. One of the commonly asked interview question is what is the difference between @component and @repository annotation? Many of the time they are asking the same question in the style. How they are asking? Can I use @component annotation for DAO layer? Yes or no? I can use. Yes. Then what is the difference? Why @repository annotation is available? So this time you have to answer that @repository annotation is a specific annotation for the DAO layer. It is doing all the job, whatever the component annotation is doing. But additionally, it is doing one more job. It is converting the underlying SQL JDBC related exception to the Spring exception. Getting my point? This is what answer actually you have to give. So similarly, everyone, the next thing is available. They are asking one more question. Can I use @component annotation instead of the service annotation? Answer is again yes. But service annotation or any class that is annotated with @service, it is supposed to contain the business logic. any class that is annotated with @service, the class is supposed to contain the business logic. So don't you think that we are giving a separate ID for every specific type? Yes, we are giving a specification. We are creating a specification. So for example, let's say that using the reflection API, somebody wanted to analyze your project. Then if a class is annotated with @service, means it is a clear annotation. It is not doing anything related to database. It is not doing anything related to presentation. It is actually just doing the business logic processing. So @component annotation is sufficient in both the cases, but it will not provide you additional functionality. And into the long run, it will ultimately create problem. So now question arises, why to use component? Clear? Anybody can answer? Then why to use component annotation? Simple. When you are having a class that neither belong to the repository, nor belong to the service, nor belong to the controller, and if you want a Spring container to create object of the same, then you have to use component annotation. Clear? It is very much like जिसका कोई नहीं होता उसका खुदा होता है. In the Spring, जिसका कोई नहीं होता उसका component annotation होता है. That is what you can remember. Those who are not comfortable with Hindi, for them I am repeating the sentence. If you are not aware about any specific type, then go for the component annotation. But if you are aware about the specific type, then use @repository, @service, or @component annotation. Is that point okay? Everyone, now it is clear. That's good. That's good. That's good. Similarly, the same story is actually available for @controller. So use this annotation when actually use this annotation for a class that actually contains request handling method. What is the meaning of request handling method? That we will discuss into the next week, day 1. Don't worry. That we will discuss into the next week, day number 1. So first part is done. So both approaches are done. @bean annotation is something I have told you. I have told you. So shall we proceed further? Shall I take an example of these types of annotations? Yes, it is. That's good. So initially, I'm going to do one job. And when we were talking about the manual wiring, in case of the manual wiring, we have written application.xml. This is actually not required. So let me copy and paste the next part. The next part we are writing is 14. Into the 14, we are going to have a discussion about the actually stereotype annotation, and into the stereotype annotation I will discuss to you about one more thing that is called the auto wiring. I will discuss to you about one more thing that is called auto wiring. Yesterday, remember auto wiring? No. By name, by type, and constructor. Yes, it is. That's nice. That's nice. So first thing is that everyone, I am having user DAO, user service, everything is available there. Okay. So first interface is available. The name of the interface is called user DAO interface. Let me actually change the package name. Let me change the package names. So 1 4 package names. Okay. Continue. First of all, I'm in the user DAO. User DAO is a interface, and thereafter I'm talking about user DAO IMPL. I wanted to get the object created by the Spring container itself. So don't you think that it will be good to use @repository annotation? Yes or no? Yes, it is. Let me create a constructor. So simple constructor I am creating. I can create the constructor using the field also. So constructor is created using the simple field. Simple I am doing. Nothing special. Simple actually. I am creating a default constructor where actually new array list is created. Then coming to the next part. When I'm coming to the next part, then after coming to next part, I'm talking about the user service. For the user service IMPL, I have to create the next part, and the next part is I have to use @service annotation. Yes or no? I have to use @service annotation. Is that clear? That's good. So two annotations I am doing, and just actually for the sake of checking whether everything is working properly or not, I just wanted to execute this application. And first of all, I have to create a configuration. Yes or no? I have to create a configuration. So let me actually rename this package to config. And when I'm renaming this package to config, so I wanted to create a class. The name of the class I am writing is going to be again app config class. the name of the class I am creating is the app config class. And when I'm talking about the app config class, then in case of the app config class, I have to use the annotation. The name of the annotation is going to be at the rate configuration annotation. Thereafter, I have to use the next thing. The next thing is called component scan. Into the component scan, we are talking about the base package. Into the base package, the thing that actually I'm going to write down is, isn't it better to scan the entire com.masai school package, because it will automatically go for the repository also. It will automatically go to the service also. Make sense, everyone? So this is what one job that actually I have done. And if I'm talking about the main class, that is app.java. So this class app.java, you should directly move to com.masai school folder. This class you should directly move to com.masai school folder. Initially, I'm not talking about any method calling, etc. I just wanted to check whether everything is working properly or not. So let me create a cut, save, and let me delete this. After deleting this, then I'm talking about control N. I wanted to create a class. The name of the class I wanted to create in the package. This is going to be com.masai school package. The name of the class is going to be app class. Into the app class. Yeah. This time, everyone, do I need to use class path XML application context, or I have to use annotation config application context? Definitely annotation config application context. And here actually I have to specify the name, that is app config dot class is something that actually I need to write down. Nothing special. I am doing everything right now. Right now. Oh, import statement is missing, I think. Yeah. And you are not welcomed, Mr. Class Path. You are not welcomed both as of now. Let me run this code. Let me run this code. So can you see that object of user.dow IMPL is created? Can you see that object of user.dow IMPL is created? Why the object of why this? So if I wanted to create the object of user service IMPL, then actually I have to provide a parameterized constructor. I have to provide a parameterized constructor. So let me create a constructor using the field, and I'm creating a constructor using the field. Thereafter, I'm clicking on the generate. Thereafter, I'm clicking on the generate, and here I'm writing system.out.println. Here I'm writing that is inside, or you can say that user service IMPL, user service IMPL colon, and this is what I'm writing as constructor. Let me run this application again. Alt Shift X J. So first object of DAO class is created. Thereafter, object of service class is created. So can you see this time when I'm using the stereotype annotation, then automatically things are working for me? Yes or no? Yes, it is. Okay. If the things are available for me, then can I do one simple job that using the context, I can call the getBeans method. And when I'm calling the getBean method, then the first bean that actually, see, if I'm talking about the name of the bean, so just a simple question I am asking you this time, can I say a simple thing that the name of the bean is going to be user.dow IMPL, but you in the small letter? Yes or no? The name of the bean is going to be user.dow IMPL, but u is available in the small letter. Yes, it is. So if I'm talking about, let's say that app.java, into the app.java, I'm talking about the user.dow IMPL. Into the user.dow IMPL, then the name of the class that actually I have to write down is user.dow.class. This is the first job that actually I am doing. And practically, can I say that I do not need actually object of DAO layer here? I actually need the object of service layer here. Yes or no? Practically, I need object of user service here. So I'm creating the object of user service here. This is what actually I'm calling the service. After calling it service, can we call the add user method? Yes, we can call the add user method. It is going to be ABC. Can I again call the add user method? Definitely this is going to be add user method BCD. Then again, I need to call the add user method, and I have to provide the thing is going to be CDE. Thereafter, I am writing system.out.println, and I'm writing service dot has name method I am calling. Into the has user, I am checking for ABC. Thereafter, I am checking for, let's say, FGT. So simple questions are there. Let me execute this application. Isn't it working fine? Yes or no? Yes. It is working perfectly. Okay, so don't you think that writing code is actually very, very easy using the annotation rather than the XML annotation? Rather than XML approach? Yes, it is very easy. So this is what actually you have to use. This is what actually you have to use. So one example I have taken, but actually lot of hidden things are there in this code that actually we have to take care. Lot of hidden things are available in this code that actually we have to take care. First of all, let me come to the questions, but let me come to the notes. Into the notes, everyone, Spring annotation. Into the Spring annotation, stereotype annotation, at the rate component, at the rate service, at the rate repository. We already have discussion. At the rate component is the parent annotation, at the rate service controller repository are the sub annotation. What is the mean of them? This is something that I have already told you. What is the mean of component auto scanning is there for the doing the component auto scanning? I have told you one annotation. The name of the annotation is called at the rate component scan annotation. And everyone, you wanted to change the name of the bean, then definitely you can change the name of the bean using value attribute. If you wanted to do component annotation, component scanning using XML, if you wanted to do component scanning in the XML, then actually directly there is context column. Component scan is available and bases you can specify, but because you are going to work mainly on the annotation based approach, so I don't think that you will use this. But just for your convenience, I have told you how component scanning takes place. This is something we have already covered. Then we were talking about the next thing that is called auto wiring. This is something we have to discuss. This is something that actually we have to discuss. Okay. Post construct and pre-destroyed discussed. Post construct and pre-destroy discussed. Yes. Yesterday I was talking about the scope. Then two type of scope I talked to you. The first type of scope is called singleton scope. Second is called the prototype scope. Which one is the default scope? Please tell me. Which one is the default scope? Singleton is the default scope, definitely. If you wanted to change the scope, then there is one annotation available that is called at the rate scope annotation. Into the at the rate scope annotation, directly you can write down whatever scope you wanted to apply. If I'm talking about the Spring core, then there are two scope available, that is singleton and prototype. When we come to the Spring MVC, then we will talk about the request and session scope also. We will talk about the request and the session scope also. At the rate configuration annotation already done. At the rate component scan annotation already done. So most of the part is done. At the rate bean, this is done. See, if I'm talking about the stereotype annotation, then can I say that stereotype annotations are actually class level annotation, but bean annotation is actually a method level annotation? Yes or no? Yes, it is. This is one more pointer that actually I am adding into your notes. The notes is that if I'm talking about the stereotype annotation, then stereotype annotations is actually called the class-based annotation. But if I'm talking about the bean annotation, then the bean annotation is actually going to be method-based annotation. Is that okay? Perfect. Okay, this is one more change that actually we are having. And this example already we have taken for you how this is working. Then at the rate value, at the rate auto wire. Two things are actually only pending there. Okay. In this example, can you see one thing that actually into the user DAO IMPL constructor is called and we have initialized it with the empty array list. But on the other hand, if I'm talking about the user service IMPL, so first question, into the user service IMPL, how many constructors I am having? Into the user service IMPL, how many constructors I am having? Only one constructor I am having. Okay. Is that constructor option number one default constructor, or option number two, it is a parameterized constructor such that it is containing only one parameter? Okay. This time, if I'm talking about the object creation of the user service IMPL, has I created any object of user service IMPL? Have I created any object of user service IMPL? Or it is created by Spring container? So there is stereotype annotation available. So definitely it is done by the Spring container. Yes or no? Is that clear? So this time, can you see that automatically your Spring container is injecting the dependency? If it would not have injected the dependency, then it will lead to null pointer exception. But recently I have executed the example, and when I executed the example, then I have clearly witnessed that no problem, Spring is automatically injecting the dependency for us. So this time, Can I say that auto wiring is enabled by default? Can I say that auto wiring is enabled by default? Yes or no? Yes, it is. Unfortunately, wrong statement. Auto wiring is not actually enabled by default, but if your class is having only one argument constructor, then actually mentioning the auto wiring is not required. Repeating my word again. Repeating my word again. Assume the second case. The second case is that everyone, let's say that if I am having a constructor of the user service IMPL and the constructor of the user service IMPL is accepting two parameters. Let's say that it is accepting two parameters. One more parameter, for example, let's say I am talking about the employee DAO. One more parameter that I am writing, this is going to be of the employee DAO. So this time, can I say one thing, that how many dependencies are there? Two dependencies are there. Let's say both the dependencies are available into the Spring container also. So what do you think? Your auto wiring will work? Answer is no. Answer is no. Because there is a special case. If you are having only one constructor and the constructor is a parameterized constructor, then dependency will be injected automatically. No need to use @auto wire explicitly. But everyone, if you are having more than one dependency, in this condition, you have to write down @auto wire annotation explicitly. Is that clear? So this was a special case. That's why it is working. This was a special case. That's why it is working. So overall, the pointer is that actually if the class has only single parameter constructor, then Spring will actually automatically inject the dependency using auto wiring. But this, but it doesn't mean, it will be good to say that it doesn't mean that auto wiring is actually enabled by default. No, it doesn't mean that auto wiring is enabled by default. Answer is 100% no. Because for constructor constructor with more than one parameter, we have to tell Spring container to inject the dependency using @auto wire annotation. Is that clear? This rule is clear, everyone. So do not think that auto wiring is enabled by default. Answer is no. Answer is no. Okay. This time, if I'm talking about performing the auto wiring, so if you wanted to perform the auto wiring, then to perform the auto wiring, you have to use one annotation. The name of the annotation is called @auto wired annotation. The name of the annotation is actually called the @auto wired annotation. So this time, simple logic. If you are writing @auto wired, means definitely you wanted to perform auto wiring. Yes or no? Just apply one very basic common sense. If manually, as a programmer, I am writing @auto wired, means definitely I wanted to get Spring container to perform auto wiring. Yes or no? Yes, it is. So this time, can I say that there is no need to tell that the default value of auto wire is no? In case of annotation, we cannot say this statement because manually we are writing @auto wire. Yes or no? Make sense? Simple logic. Simple logic. By default, auto wiring is disabled. But if you are using @auto wire annotation, or if you wanted to enable @auto wire, enable the auto wiring, then you have to use @auto wire. Is that point okay? Yes, it is. Now, when you are writing @auto wire, so the question arises that, sir, how exactly it will perform the injection? So I will say when you are using @auto wire annotation, then first strategy is going to be by name, and the second strategy is going to be by type. Getting my point? The first strategy is going to be by name, and the second strategy is going to be by type. Clear? Yes, it is. So actually, if I'm talking about this code, then definitely this code is actually same as this code. Both the codes are 100% same. And one more pointer that actually we are writing is, the pointer that we are writing is that if I am writing @autowire here, then this code is also going to work perform. Actually, the concept is that if I'm talking about the first strategy to resolve dependency, if I'm talking about the first strategy to resolve dependency, then the first strategy to resolve the dependency is by name. If let's say that by name is not able to resolve the dependency, or let's say that if the by name doesn't work, so in this condition, isn't it reasonable to say that it will actually go for the by type strategy? Yes or no? Is that okay? And still, if the dependency is not available, then ultimately it will end up with an exception. Still, if the dependency is not available, then it will end up with an exception. Is that point okay? So keep in mind, null will not be inserted in this case. If no dependency found, if still no dependency found, then actually exception will be there. In case of XML annotation, we ended up with null, but this time actually we will end up with exception, that is unsatisfied dependency exception. Shall I take an example? Shall I take one more example? See everyone, one thing that you should keep into mind. Since the day one, whenever I am talking about the Spring container, so definitely Spring container is managing the beans, yes or no? And when the Spring container is managing the bean, so isn't it logical to say that this dependency injection will not work for the primitive data type? Because beans are objects. Yes, it is. So always keep in mind that your dependency injection will not work for the primitive type. Second number point, the only disadvantage or the another disadvantage of dependency injection is that if there are multiple dependencies available, then programmer's intervention is required. Otherwise, dependency will not be resolved, and ultimately you will end up with no unique bean definition exception. Yesterday we have taken the same example. Yes or no? Yes, it is. Okay. See, one more thing that I wanted to add, if you wanted to make any dependency optional, because when you are using auto wiring means dependency must be there. Yes or no? When you are using auto wiring, then dependency must be there. In case of annotation based approach, if you wanted to make the dependency optional, so definitely to make the dependency, to make the DEPENDENCY dependency optional, we have to use required equal to false with @auto wired annotation. Is that clear? So let me try this approach once. So for example, everyone, let's say that in front of you, I'm writing here @auto wired. Into the @auto wired, let's say I'm writing that is required equal to false. This time I'm writing required equal to false, and I'm going to user DAO IMPL. Here actually I'm making this annotation comment. This time when @repository annotation is commented, so what do you think? Object of user DAO IMPL class will be created. This time when stereotype annotation is commented, so the object of user DAO IMPL class, will it be created? Answer is no. So this time can I say that to the user service IMPL there is no dependency available? Yes or no? To the user service IMPL there is no dependency available. If no dependency is available, now let me execute this code into the two conditions. First condition, when actually I am using @auto wired. First condition, when actually I am using @auto wired. So in this condition, let's say that if I'm going to execute this code, then upon execution of this code, don't you think that I have actually ended up with an exception, and the exception is going to be unsatisfied dependency exception? In case of annotation based approach, dependency is compulsory. In case of XML approach, if dependency is not found, it was injecting null, but this is not the case in case of auto wire annotation. Is that okay? Second number case, let's say that I am removing this auto wire, but I am making required equal to false. I am making required equal to false. When actually I am making required equal to false, then actually let's see what is the result here. So Alt Shift XJ is what I am writing. And when I am writing Alt Shift XJ, then again it is showing one exception. The name of the exception is called unsatisfied dependency exception. What is the mean of this? It actually says that you are saying that required equal to false. It says that required equal to false. Means actually two situations are there. Definitely, because there is @service annotation is available. So when @service annotation is available, then in this condition, definitely object must be created. Yes or no? In this condition, object must be created. Yes or no? Definitely. Now, if we are telling that the required equal to false, what is the meaning of telling the required equal to false? The meaning of telling the required equal to false is that the dependency is not compulsory to create the object. The dependency is not compulsory to create the object. But because we wanted to create the object, so the solution is that everyone, we have to provide a default constructor. Getting my point? This time, because you have set it required equal to false, so if the matching is not available, so this constructor will not be called, but the default constructor will be called. Is that okay? Shall I execute it once again? This time working, but ultimately it is ended up with the null pointer exception. This time it is working, but it is ended up with the null pointer exception. Now let me go to the final case. Into the final case, let's say that I am uncommenting the repository annotation. When I am uncommenting the repository annotation, so can I say that object of this class will be created? Yes or no? Yes, it is. Then actually everyone, I am coming to app.java, and after coming to app.java, I am pressing Alt Shift X J. Please tell me which constructor is called, default or parameterized? Parameterized. Why? Because Spring is greedy in the terms of object creation. It will always call the constructors that are having maximum satisfied dependency. Remember, yesterday we had discussion about the same line. That Spring is greedy. It is always picking up the constructor that is capable to satisfy most dependencies. Is that okay? Clear, everyone? So when you are using the required equal to false, so in case of required equal to false, there is a different thing. So overall, all the combinations I have written here. Shall I take last example in which I will show you how exactly by name is working, how exactly by type is working? And yesterday you had discussion about the primary attribute. Remember? Yes, it is. So I'm going to take one example. So let me close this example. Lot of discussion we have done this example, but overall, I hope this is going to be a learning experience for you. And this time, actually, one dependency possibly I have added unnecessarily. That dependency is that no. Perfect. Perfect, perfect, perfect. So let me copy and let me paste this project into the pasting this project. So for example, let's say this is going to be example number 15. And this is a detailed example of the auto wiring. And let's say that this time by name. And apart from the by name, we are talking about by type. Default location is something that actually I am using. Then actually, let me refresh this project. So I am refreshing this project, thereafter clicking on the OK. After clicking on the OK, then this time, not so much projects are required. Let me delete some them. I do not want it to make this example complicated. I wanted to keep the example actually very, very simple. Okay, app.java is available. Into the app.java, nothing special actually this time I am doing in the same package. In the same package, I'm going to create a class. The name of the class that actually I am writing is app_config class. Onto the config class, I am writing one thing that is called @configuration annotation. I am writing one annotation that is called configuration annotation. Then I wanted to create a class, and let's say that the name of the class I am writing is A. The name of the class that actually I am writing is A. Into the A class, nothing special. I am writing system.out.println, and here I am writing that is inside constructor. I'm writing here inside constructor. Okay. Then I'm writing one thing that is called @component annotation. @component is a stereotype annotation. And here I wanted to specify the name explicitly. And let's say that the name I'm specifying is AOBJ. The name that I'm specifying is AOBJ. So this time, can I say that the bean that will be created by the Spring container, that bean will have the name AOBJ? Yes or no? The name of the bean will be AOBJ. This is the first case that actually we have done. Now everyone, see, I'm doing one more job. The job that actually I'm doing is I'm creating one more class, and the name of the class that I'm writing is class number B. Into the class B, again, let's say that I'm writing @component. Okay. And here I'm writing private A space small a. I'm writing here private a space small a. After writing private a space small a, I wanted to create a constructor of class B. And while writing the constructor of class B, let's say that I am using at the rate auto wired here. I can use at the rate auto wired here also. I can use at the rate auto wired here also. Both are valid. No problem. No problem. So first of all, everyone, this time, what is the name of the reference variable? It is small a. The name of the reference variable is small a. But if I'm asking you what is the name of the bean, it is a obj. So what do you think? By name strategy will work? Answer is no. But question number 2, will the object be injected? Answer is yes. Answer is yes. Why actually it will be injected? Because if by name is not working, then it will go for the by type strategy. Make sense? Make sense? Yes or no? This time the strategy that is going to work is going to be by name strategy. Okay, let me do one more job. Let me do one more job, or let's say that this time I'm saying, let me once execute this application. So into the app.java context, app.config is there. So let me execute this application. No output, no output, no output. We are talking about the app config. I forgot to apply the component scan annotation. Into the component scan annotation, if I'm talking about the base package, then the name of the base package that I'm writing is going to be com.masai school com.masai school. Okay, alt shift xj. This time object of class A as well as object of class B both are created. Yes or no? If I'm talking about the strategy, what exactly strategy it is following? This time it is following by type strategy. Clear? This time it is following by type strategy. Okay, let me take the next example. Let's say this time I'm not talking about at the rate component annotation. I'm talking about at the rate bean annotation. Into the at the rate bean annotation, again I'm talking about the value, and the value that I'm providing is AOBJ. Then there is one method available. The name of the method is actually I'm calling get AOBJ method. And while calling the get AOBJ method, one more thing I am doing, a small a equal to new capital A. I am writing a small a equal to new capital A, and thereafter I am writing here that is written A. So this time can I say that the bean that will be generated, the name of the bean is going to be AOBJ? Yes or no? Is that clear? And one more thing that I wanted to mention, this time bean name is AOBJ, but if I'm talking about the default name of the bean, if if value attribute is not used, if the value attribute is not used, then the name of the bean is going to be same as whatever your method name is. Is that okay? In case of stereotype annotation, whatever be your class name, it is going to be your bean name. But in case of method level at the rate bean annotation, whatever be your method name is, it is going to be your bean name. Clear? Is that point clear? How exactly beans are getting their default names? In case of class level annotation, whatever be your class name, it will be your bean name, but bean name will be available in the camel case. Second number point, when you are using at the rate bean annotation, so methods are always supposed to be written in the mixed case convention. Yes or no? Methods in Java programming are always supposed to be written into the mixed case convention. Yes or no? Yes, it is. So definitely, if the method name is already in the mixed case, so no need to change the cases. So this time name of the bean will be same as your method name is. Is that point okay? Yes, it is. But if you have followed the wrong convention, then Spring is very smart. It will convert your bean into the mixed case. So for example, let's say you have written get G into the capital letter, but still your bean name will be G, get G with the small letter. Is that okay? That's why it is always good. You should never actually go out of conventions. You should always follow conventions, and it actually makes your life very, very easy. Is that clear? Everybody? Okay, so one bean I am creating. This time actually from the a.java, no need to write down at the rate component annotation. From the b.java, no need to write down at the rate component annotation. App config is there. Then actually let me create this object again. When I'm running this example again, object of which class is created? Only class A, because actually I have used the bean annotation only here. Let's say that I wanted to provide the object of class B. So let's say that I'm writing here get B obj. When I'm writing here get b obj, thereafter b small b equal to new capital B. Thereafter I'm writing the thing is going to be return b. And after writing the return b, again I'm writing at the rate b here. I'm writing here at the rate bin here. Okay, this time because there is no default constructor available. So when the default constructor is not available, then can I say that I can use this thing? Yes or no? Make sense? Or second option, if I'm telling you, then don't you think that I can actually apply at the rate component scan available here? And when applying the at the rate component scan, then auto wire is automatically written here. Yes or no? At the rate auto wire is automatically written here. So can I say that object of class B will be created by the container itself? Yes, it is. And because I am using auto wiring, so it will automatically look for dependency. First of all, dependency will be match using by name. First of all, dependency will be match using by name. What is the name of the bean? Requested bean name is small a. What actually I am generating? I am generating a obj. Will it work? By name strategy. Will the by name strategy work? Answer is no. So this time what strategy again it will work? Definitely by type strategy is going to work in this case again. Is that point okay? So nothing special, same story is there. You have to provide the dependency here. Null is not going to be inserted by default. Null is not going to be inserted by default. So I'm talking about the base packages, and into the base packages, I wanted to specify that this is going to be com.masai school. All shift app.java, all shift x j. Both constructors are called. Yes or no? Yes, it is. Okay. Let me take one more case. This time actually I wanted to create one more method. This is possibly going to be my last code, one of the last code. I'm writing at the rate bin into the at the rate bin. This time I'm writing small a. This time I'm writing a small a. The first method that I'm calling is going to have the name get obj1. The second is having the name that is going to be obj2. And here I'm writing system as well. Both methods will be called. Okay. This time, please tell me I'm having two objects of class A. The one object is having name small a and another object is having name aobj. Take a look at the field name into the class B and please tell me which dependency will be injected. Option 1 aobj or option number 2 only a. Definitely option number 2 will work for you. So this time actually when two dependencies are available, then by default it is going to work on the concept of by name strategy. Is that clear? Two objects are created, but this time it is working on the concept of by name strategy. Okay. Then talking about the third and the last case, into the third and the last case, for example, let's say name of the dependency, I am writing ABC. So two dependencies are available. One is aobj, second is available abc. Any of the dependency able to satisfy by name? Any of the dependency able to satisfy by name? Answer is no. And this time because both dependencies are there, none of the dependency is able to satisfy by name. But for the by type, two choices are available. That's why ultimately I will end up with an exception. And the exception is going to be no unique bean definition exception. Is that clear? Yes, it is. So this time if I wanted to do the same job, then I have to use at the rate primary annotation. Make sense, everyone? This time I'm using at the rate primary annotation. So when I'm using at the rate primary annotation, so clearly I have mentioned my choice. Yes or no? Yes, it is. So doing the right click, run as Java application. This time code is working. Now let me add one. So this primary, etc. we have already done yesterday. Now actually, let me add one specific thing here also. Let's say that if I wanted to inject by name and I wanted to provide name according to my choice. Have you seen such example? I'm having two beans. I'm saying that I wanted to go with by name strategy, but name I have to mention. Have you seen this strategy yesterday? Answer is no. Yesterday you have seen only at the rate primary annotation. By name strategy was working when the name of the bean and the name of the reference variable is exactly same. But this time, if I'm talking about the name of the bean is small a here. and the two beans I am having available, their name is AOBJ and ABC. So I am asking default by name strategy. Will it work? Default by name strategy, will it work? Answer is no. If it is going by type, then it will generate exception. Yes or no? If it is going by type, then definitely it will generate exception because there is no primary choice available. Make sense? So this time I'm saying that I wanted to specify the bean to be injected, and this time the name I have to specify by my own. If I wanted to do this job, then there is one more annotation available. The name of the annotation is called the qualifier annotation. In the qualifier annotation, I am explicitly mentioning that you should inject the bean whose name is ABC. Is that point clear? I am explicitly telling that you should inject the bean whose name is ABC. So simple. If I'm talking about @primary annotation, then can I say that @primary annotation is applicable for by type strategy? Yes or no? Can I say that @primary annotation is applicable for by type strategy? Yes or no? But if I'm talking about @qualifier, then @qualifier is applicable for by name strategy. Is that okay? @primary is for by type, @qualifier is for by name. This is the only thing that you should keep into the mind. And once you have done this part, then your auto wiring is completed. Once you have done this part, then your auto wiring is completed. Is that okay? So if I'm talking about primary annotation, then primary annotation is going to work in case of, you can say that simple by type strategy. And if I'm talking about qualifier, then qualifier is going to work in case of by name strategy. Will you remember this? Everybody? Yes, it is. So take a look at the notes. Into the notes again, everyone. Post construct is already what we have done, and thereafter stereotype annotation is done. And auto wiring. Auto wiring, I have already told you every point we have already covered. Keep in mind, auto wiring is not going to work for primitive data type. If you wanted to mark the optional dependency, you have to set require equal to false. Go through the notes very properly. @qualifier is again available. And one last point that I wanted to add. Then last type I wanted to add. See, can you see that auto wire I can use with the by name also? Oh, sorry, on the field name also. Two type of dependency injections are there: constructor injection and setter injection. If I'm talking about the constructor injection and setter injection, then I can use @auto wire with the constructor also. I can use auto wire with the setter method also. But this time, can you see that we can use auto wire with the field also? Yes or no? Hurry up. This syntax is perfectly okay, but this syntax is not recommended. This syntax is perfectly okay, but this syntax is not recommended. There are reasons that I will discuss to you sometime else, but please do not go with @auto wire annotation with the field name. Scope is done, post construct is done, configuration is done, component scan is done, then @bean annotation is done. Everyone, just actually one thing is available, @value. Please do it yourself. This is very simple. Now it is time for the leap session. Now it is time for the leap session. So just a second, just a second. Hello. Yeah. So about the leap, you already know it is actually learn, apply, and practice. And into the leap, what is the sole purpose? You have already gone through the last block because we wanted to make you good in the interviews. We wanted to make you proper in the terms of interview. That's why these sessions are here. Then everyone into the presentation. For the theoretical question, there is debugs format available. And for the coding, there is reactor framework available. For the DSA, you should go for the whiteboard. Unnecessarily, I am not going to waste so much time of yours in practicing this. Then definitely into the sprint one, it is all about the debugs method. What is definition, use case, benefits, and extra information. You all are already familiar about these things. Anybody here who need repetition? What is the mean of debugs is? Everybody comfortable with debugs? Write one on chat. That's nice. So today you have to do practice on debugs. This is all about the prompt writing. So whenever you are going to write down the prompt, then you should describe the role, you should describe the detail, you should write down the example, then sample output you should include into your prompt. So now I'm going to provide you the prompt for this time period. Prompt will be shared to you. You have to start your interview. On the Vimeo, you have to record. And during this entire time period, you people have to share your screen. You people have to share your screen. I have turned on multiple people screen sharing. I have already turned on multiple people screen sharing. So I will keep a watch on your screen, and you can keep your Zoom meeting mic off. You can keep Zoom meeting camera off because it will be used by Vimeo. Clear? On the Zoom camera plus mic, it is already off. Keep it off because your mic plus camera will be used by the Vimeo. You have to turn on the screen sharing. I have enabled it and you can start your work. I'm going to share the primer link with you. I'm going to share the primer link with you. So everyone, primer link is provided to you. Primer link is provided to you. Please check if it is working. Yet I have already checked. It's working. You all are requested to turn on screen sharing. You all are requested to turn on screen sharing. Everyone. Only 2 scholars have started so far. Everyone, please start the screen sharing. Form link is shared to you. That form is where you have to actually upload the recording. And if extension is missing in your PC, then all the extension links are available here. Now I'm going to turn off my camera. I'm going to turn off my mic, but I'm available in the session till 2 p.m.